What if you could harness the power of your vices and turn them into your virtues? What if you could go all in on who you are and succeed on your own terms? PJ Morton is a Grammy Award-winning singer, songwriter, and producer. He pounds the keys in Maroon 5, and he's a rebel.
I was supposed to just follow in those footsteps, and I was like, wait a minute, that's not what I'm feeling.
In fact, he's made that his superpower. This preacher's son has been pushing back since he was a kid, growing up in his father's shadow, and always wanting to do what other people thought he shouldn't.
My only motivation was being exactly who I wanted to be.
In this episode, we explore the secret power of defiance, disrupting the status quo, and forgoing all other voices in search of your own. This is Rare Breed.
Why did you identify out of the 7 virtues? Why did rebel stick with you? Like, what are you rebelling against?
I feel like I'm always rebelling, you know? I was independent before that was cool, you know? Just like not doing the major system. So I did what everybody did initially with all my heroes. Went to the major labels and tried to get a deal. Nobody was interested. So I just, out of necessity, initially said, all right, well, let me figure out how to do this myself.
On my own?
Yeah.
So give me an example. What did you do? How did you get people's attention?
Well, this was MySpace days.
Oh, okay.
Right? So
Yeah.
I had my songs up there, but then I was using CD Baby. And at Morehouse, I got a marketing degree, right? So I was always clear about how to sell things, but I signed a publishing deal and took my band on the road and told the promoters they didn't have to pay us, just pay us from whatever we make, whoever, because I saw on MySpace that we had a following, right?
Yeah.
But it was so underground that promoters in cities they didn't see those people.
Yeah.
And then they showed up, but it was those type of things. But I spent a lot of, like almost that whole publishing check to prove, you know, but I'm still playing those markets today. I don't regret it, but like those are, I was being rebellious, like it was out of the system. And I had friends like, PJ, why don't you just, you know, because I was writing songs for other people. And, you know, I had been working with Jermaine Dupri at that time and many artists, right?
Yeah, he's great.
And I could write songs for them that would work on the radio. But I couldn't write it or do it if I didn't feel it, you know. So I couldn't make a song that was radio friendly if it didn't feel right.
Yeah.
So in that sense, all my friends were hit songwriters, and I'm like, man, I don't really care, you know, as an artist.
Yeah.
That to me, that was just rebellious the whole time, and I feel like I still do that to this day in ways, you know, in music. My last album, I had a song called Claustrophobic, you know, because of me wanting to exist in my own world and do things my own way. And a lot of times those thoughts and everybody's opinions and all of that kind of tries to cloud that. But I try to stay who I am.
So when you think about rebellious people, most people would say rebels are up to no good. They're troublemakers. They have no purpose, no cause. They just like to light shit on fire, see how it burns. But there's also this beautiful thing that can come out of being rebellious, which is that you can push boundaries. You can challenge the status quo. You can make change. And I think you're the kind of person who likes to make some change.
I do. Thank you for thinking that. Right.
What makes you such a rare breed?
You know, I didn't necessarily follow a blueprint. There wasn't what I did, kind of bridging that gap and making it okay for even church kids to be in clubs, and like it just hadn't really been done, you know. So I think in that sense, kind of a rare breed. I didn't know it at the time. Yeah.
You call yourself a rebel.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, at times I didn't think I was being rebellious. You know, a lot of times I thought that I was just doing what I thought I was supposed to be doing. And people thought that it was against what they wanted me to be doing. So it came off rebellious. So instead of fighting against that, I just embraced that, you know. And you're right, it started to become a superpower for me. But really it started, you know, being a preacher's kid, you know. And it's just deciding, you know, being the only boy too, you know, it's kind of like the family business in a way.
Okay,
You know?
so you were like
I was the only
groomed
boy.
to...
I was supposed to, I'm named after my father, his namesake. And I was supposed to just follow in those footsteps. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not what I'm feeling. That's not what I want to say.
Because a pastor and a rebel sometimes don't mix that well.
Sometimes they could.
So what what was that vision they had for you?
Well, I think any father, to be honest with you, would like to see their sons appreciate what they do enough to want to also do it. I think he just wanted me to see that and want to also do that. And it just came a different way for me. I think they saw me eventually probably taking over the church at some point. And at the very least, like, be a gospel artist, right? They're like, all right, okay, do music. Are you going to do gospel music? Yeah. I'm like,
so we hope you do gospel music.
No, I don't want to do that either. As a songwriter, I did, but as an artist, I felt like that's not who I was, right? So it came off as rebellious initially.
So how did he react to that? What was the pushback, if any, from him, and why were you doing it? What was the drawback of saying that's not me?
Yeah. Well, the initial pushback was basically concern, like, because it's not very rare for preachers' kids to rebel, right? It's almost like a
it kind of
happens, right? So initially they all thought that I just wanted to get away from this so bad, but it wasn't really that. It wasn't. I actually learned how to play in church. I would learn how to sing in church. All my friends were in church. I had a cool church experience, right? All my boys, my drummer who's been with me 10 plus years, we started in church together. So I didn't have a bad experience, but I knew that, because in gospel music, you usually limited to talking about God or what God does or how you feel about God. And I just wanted to talk about more. I feel like there was more of a message I wanted to talk. I wanted to talk about life, and I wanted to talk about love. And these things a lot of times aren't welcomed in the gospel arena of music.
Is that?
I don't know. I mean, I think by definition, gospel music is supposed to be based on the gospel, right? So which to me, if I think about the gospel, there's life going on, there's love stories in there, there's all kind of things.
Exactly.
But I think it's meant to be used to worship or that type of thing.
To celebrate God.
So it hasn't been
but
it's not really celebrated. Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I think so. I think he's bigger. When I think of Stevie Wonder, I think of God.
Yeah, me too.
I see God.
Yeah.
I see like all the
Me
creation.
too. Yeah,
and,
exactly. It's like a sermon.
So that's a perfect point, because I didn't feel like I had to change who I was or like change my beliefs really to do what I was doing. Yeah. But in past and like in history, when especially in music, when they rebelled, Sam Cooke or like, Al Green,
right?
They usually went to the extreme of it, right? And it was like, I'm not only going to talk about love, but I'm going to talk about like knocking it down and you know what I'm saying? And,
we know what you're saying.
Be graphic about that. But
right.
you know what I mean? Like but that wasn't my desire. I had no desire to like, go against like or talk about anything crazy, because that's just not who I was in real life, right? And my art just reflects that. So eventually they realized that it wasn't rebellion, but that's what was thought at first, like, he wants to do R&B.
Did they try to suppress you a little bit? Like, did that create tension between you and your dad? Or you and your family?
I remember a couple of intense conversations before
like
they fully understood. Like, what? Why are you doing it? Why do you feel you need to do this? Why do you, it's
that
just
seems very nice. Like, was Dad nice about it? They're nice. Yeah. So he didn't come at you.
It wasn't crazy. It was more, I was sensitive at that point too. So it hurt me. Like, I remember crying.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because they were like, it was just because, man, I'm not trying to do anything crazy.
Did you feel like you were disappointing him?
I did.
Yeah, like you were failing him in some way, because you weren't following in those.
I had that feeling initially. Yeah. And the same person, like, he's the one who kind of freed me as well.
So he let you. You say he let you go.
Yeah. He was the one that empowered me more than anyone. I think for me, my father's approval was more important than anything else. I don't know.
Because I think like one of the very first mirrors that we ever look into is the eyes of our parents. And they have hopes and dreams and aspirations for us that we may not even have or know for ourselves very early on. And as we're being conditioned and being, we're growing up. So sometimes I even think that we make up for some of the failures that they may have not achieved in their own life, that they kind of cast that onto us. Did you feel that he or your mom ever did that at all? Like they were just trying to get you to take over their legacy, and it was a lot to carry?
Yeah, I was very young, but I think deep down that was kind of
what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that I knew that would make him happy. Yeah, right.
Because he's like, I built this up.
Yeah, and his father was a pastor. You know, he lost his father at 12. So I think just somewhere deep down, it's like, I want my son to continue this on. Wow. And I felt that pressure, whether he put it on me or not. I felt it. Right. Because it wouldn't just be him. And my father, growing up in New Orleans, had a huge congregation, right? So the congregation was pressure, you know? Because even after my father freed me, I still had to deal with people who didn't know what was happening internally in our home, you know?
I find that really interesting that you said my father freed me.
I was, at that point, I was like making the decision, like, whether they accept it or not, I'm just gonna do what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do it. I had made that decision, right? And I was calling my father to tell him that. And he was like, no, son, I understand. Like, he was like, what you're doing, your mission in life has to be different from mine. You're gonna reach people and touch people the way I did. But I understand that it won't necessarily be the way I did. And it was breakthrough. And I felt like Superman after that. After that. And he literally, that was it. So I didn't really care about anybody. Like, then anybody who said anything, it was like, I'm good. My dad said, you know what I mean?
Let the shackles off.
Yeah. So it's crazy that it was that much power in his hands.
Yeah.
But maybe he knew it.
And you're like, why couldn't you just have said that 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Right?
Which I kind of understood why not, though, because then 4 years ago, I was 14.
You weren't ready.
Yeah, and I was probably like, and they didn't know where that was going, So for better or worse, we ended up here, and I feel like I'm who I'm supposed to be.
Of course.
Yeah.
You're part of Maroon 5. You guys are huge. You go all around the world. But at some point you break away and you say, I'm going to leave LA and I'm going to come to New Orleans. Like, what did you feel like you were losing your identity?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100% felt like I was just losing my purpose. I just didn't really know why I was doing it. Like at that moment, I was just confused. It wasn't really the Maroon thing, but I think part of the band that messed me up was I started to think that I had to shoot for those same markers, right? For my solo stuff. Yeah, I'm like, okay, all right, so we're playing. We just sold out 2 nights at Staples. How do I get there? And I'm,
By myself?
As a solo artist, right?
Oh,
so I
that's
just was
interesting.
I thought that's what it was gonna do, and that's what it did initially.
Right.
But eventually, it made me go inward and say, I just had hit records, but just played the Grammys, like maybe I have what I wanted. Because for all my life, or all your life as an artist or a musician, you're shooting for these things. Playing SNL is like big, like these things,
And then once you hit it, it's like, well, what's the next thing?
Yeah, but
for
for me,
it's
for
gonna
me, I was
change you.
thinking that all my life I'm supposed to hit all those things as a solo artist, right? And in a way, it was like I got what I wanted, but I wasn't paying attention to it in that way. I'm still on my same grind of I got to get to this. It's like, no, you're a part of that, So embrace that. So then what it started to do was make me very comfortable and not have to compete. I don't have to sell records. I don't have to have a hit song on radio. I'm in a very successful band, And so it made me go deeper. And I think when that started to happen, I just didn't really fit into the system that I was trying to fit in, and that kind of forced me to want to go back home.
Did it make you question your self-worth, like outside of the band? Like, did you feel that you depended on the band for that level of success and you couldn't possibly reach it on your own? What was the struggle?
No, that's not the feeling. It was more of what my definition of success was.
Which was
what I thought it was were the hit records.
Hitting all those metrics.
Right.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
then I hit them and I'm like, oh, there's
Did you
still
feel
more.
There's still something in there.
There's
yeah.
more. There's legacy, right? New Orleans was a legacy move. It wasn't like, it's like, yeah, how do I want to leave here? Because I know you could leave hit records and people will sing them, but what's carrying on this vision that I have? And that's what New Orleans started to be for me. And that satisfied those other things that I wanted, right? So that's what it became. It didn't feel like a failure at all. I feel like I was fine, just as far as knowing my ability and understanding what it took for me to get there, because I had to be prepared to just get there, for my name to be called to be there.
Yeah.
Right. So my definition just started to change and I started to look different places.
Could you be rebellious within Maroon 5? Like how did PJ, how are you a rebel in that band?
I think I was more a rebel to my other world, right? Mm-hmm. Showing them like, yeah, I'm that too.
Do you think you were going through the motions?
No, I felt very fulfilled with Maroon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, for me, even still, it's kind of the dichotomy of me because when I'm burnt, I have to take on everything when I'm solo, right? And when I'm burnt, I get to go and be the keyboard player and the background singer.
Oh, I see.
And
so you kind of get the best of both worlds.
I do. I feel blessed, man. I don't. No, I never felt a need to rebel in that system. I think doing that was a rebellious move altogether. Like even Adam talked about, because they started off as a punk rock band, right?
Right.
But when we decided to go pop, like a conscious decision, right? He felt that was punk rock right then in that moment. Because punk rock wasn't punk rock anymore, right? Yeah. So he's like, let's go get it. Let's go be as big as possible. And that's the punk rock move right now. So I think that changes. Rebellion changes, how you rebel changes, I think.
Rebels tend not to accept things as they are. They always have this what if question looming around them. What would you say is the singular driving what if that you have the biggest question mark around in your life? What if? Like, what if this could happen? Or what if I could do this?
Yeah. What's so crazy? I'm just being very, super transparent right now. And it may not seem like a big deal, but me being the indie, king that I am, in soul music, I always question, what if I partnered up with a brand right now? What if I partnered up with a major label right now? And I do that all the time. And I have to call friends, to either talk me off that ledge or because, listen, I never say never, right? Like I said, I'm always willing to pivot. But sometimes I have to call and have that conversation. They're like, it's not what you think. You know what I'm saying? Being in that system is different. I have to talk to friends who are signing those labels and stuff, which is big because that's kind of my whole thing, right? So the fact that I question and say, man, what if I didn't have to always be the rebel, and what if I had a machine that pushes this, So I question that sometimes, yeah, for sure.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we studied you for a while, and I was like, trying to see where the rebel was coming from, because I felt like it wasn't immediately obvious. But what I love about some types of rebellion, and it's actually quite small at times. It's just micro acts of rebellion.
Sure.
So when you think about that, what price have you paid?
I feel like I could have taken a lot of different routes. One being the easiest, just following in my father's footsteps. And I'm sure I would have learned to preach, and be great with
good
words.
At it.
Yeah. I watched my father do it very well. And then I could have been a gospel singer and probably sold a bunch of records immediately, because my father's name and what I did. So I think in those instances, I just slowed the process way down for myself. I think that's the price that I really paid. It's like, man, stuff I wanted immediately. I just had to wait years and years for the payoff, and I'm grateful now. But yeah, sometimes I didn't see the end. I didn't see that it was going to work out the way that I wanted to. My only motivation was was being exactly who I wanted to be. And I was just gonna have to be okay with that, whatever the outcome was. You know?
But with that comes sacrifice, right? It hurts to be a rebel.
Yeah.
Because everyone around you is trying to force you back into a lane. And you're like, fuck the lane, because you want to create the lane.
I mean, I can, yeah.
But it hurts
that rings,
to do
yeah.
that.
Well,
So,
I mean, just financially. When I initially, started with my music, and this went on for years and years, and I heard Prince would have to do this in the beginning of his career in a different way. Prince didn't want to be confused as just an R&B guy because he was a black guy, right?
Yeah.
So all the R&B clubs or venues, he turned down for years and years, right? He was like, I'm gonna do the rock clubs because I want them to know that I'm different, right? For me, these youth groups and like young adult ministries and like singles ministries, they would like try to get me to come, and they're like, can you do just one of your dad songs, or and literally these institutions and sometimes these colleges have a lot of money, and I would have to literally say no to real actual money to say that's not who I am. And sometimes people would make me feel bad about it and be like, they're not even asking for a lot. Like, why can't you just? And I'm like,
true.
I know it doesn't seem big to you, but if I do that, then that puts me on a path to have to do that.
Yeah, because sometimes you have to say no to other people to say yes to yourself.
For sure.
And that hurts like hell.
Yeah, and that was that is a big price that I actually felt, like I said, financially, but otherwise, it's like sometimes my friends would be looking at me and I'm like, couldn't explain it in the moment, but just like, I'm not doing it, So, yeah, I can relate to that for sure.
You talked a little bit about legacy. And it sounds like you've thought a lot about the legacy that you want to leave.
Absolutely, yeah.
What is that?
Well, it's this, it's being free. I think if anything, I want to leave for kids that come behind me to be themselves, really, and be okay with that. And don't let people who don't understand what that means in the moment, don't let that deter you. You know what I'm saying? Because it can happen. Your friends especially are the ones that influence you the most. So when they're like, I don't know, man, be yourself, and eventually they'll either fall in line or they won't be there anyway, So, I feel like that maybe is a small thing, but with that seed plants and grows of being, if we were all ourselves and doing what we were supposed to do, man, we would be so much more powerful just as a people, right? Like if all the fingers did what they were supposed to do. So I think more than anything, more than music, because I think that translates into music, it translates into business, everything. Be an individual, and fight for it. Right.
Thank you. That was the best fucking answer you could have given. That was beautiful.
Appreciate that.
Really respect that about you.
Thank
Anyone who wants to pay it forward by saying it's okay to be who you are, and it's better. The world is better if you are.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
That's real.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
This was fun. I
Thank
wish
you,
we could
guys.
have longer.
Me too. We got to do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part two.
Part two next year.
Part 2 over barbecue.
Got you.
Yeah.
Got you.